The only absolute certainty in life is death, unless you're a character in a soap opera, and it doesn't necessarily mean the end of the road. Take Ray Walters, Joe Absalom in Emmerdale, for example. Although killed off prior to the Corey Dale crossover episode, he made a series of appearances and flashback scenes to explain his demise, and made another spectacular comeback in today's episode. A ghostly vision of Twisted Ray was seen to be haunting Bear Wolf, Joshua Richards, throughout the installment, urging him to confess to his murder. Patty Dingle, Dominic Brunt, had finally decided to seek professional help for his dad, and with help from Dr. Manpreet Sharma, Rebecca Sarkar, arranged for a counselor who had experienced modern slavery firsthand to speak with him. The risk was huge. Bear was broken and vulnerable, and it wouldn't take much for him to admit to his fit of rage that led to Ray's death. As the counseling session began, Bear began to suffer intense hallucinations of his captor, who swarmed around him and urged him not to believe her words. Ray promised he was a good man who tried to help, intensifying Bear's Stockholm Syndrome. Meanwhile, Dylan Penders, Fred Kettle, told Patty that he felt he was cursed, as since he arrived in the village, he'd brought nothing but trouble. He thought it was time to move on, feeling that everyone would be much better off without him. His girlfriend, April Windsor, Amelia Flanagan, had similar concerns, telling stepmom Rona Goskirk, Zoe Henry, that she didn't feel comfortable not receiving some sort of punishment for being part of Ray's operation. Rona urged her to see that she was as much of a victim as Bear. The four then headed out into Main Street and became aware of a situation unfolding as a result of Bear's consultation. Police officers were escorting him out of Manpreet's house, with the counselor explaining that he'd confessed to killing Ray and had contacted authorities himself. Will Bear be sent down for murder? They say the only absolute certainty in life is death. But in Emmerdale, even death doesn't always mean goodbye. Just ask Ray Walters. Though the villain met a brutal end weeks ago, his shadow looms larger than ever over the Yorkshire village. In a chilling and emotionally charged episode, Ray, played by Joe Absalom, returned in ghostly form, tormenting the fragile mind of Bear Wolf, Joshua Richards, and pushing him to a confession that could destroy everything. As Bear's mental health hangs by a thread, Patty Dingle has made a desperate gamble to save his father, but the outcome may cost them both dearly. A villain's afterlife. Ray Walters was killed before the much-hyped Corey Dale crossover episode, his demise shrouded in chaos, fear, and desperation. But soap opera logic dictates that death doesn't always mean goodbye. Flashback scenes previously filled in the gaps about Ray's violent end. Now his presence is more psychological than physical. In today's episode, viewers witnessed a terrifying development. Ray appearing as a twisted, taunting hallucination inside Bear's fractured mind. The once dominant manipulator now exists as a whispering specter, stalking Bear's every thought. Ray's voice drips with false reassurance. "I tried to help you," he insists. "You're a good man. You don't need to listen to them." It's the language of control, the same emotional manipulation that kept Bear trapped under Ray's influence for months. Patty's desperate plan. Watching his father unravel has been agony for Patty. Bear is haunted, guilt-ridden, and deeply confused. His grip on reality slips with each passing day. Determined to get him real help, Patty turns to Dr. Manpreet Sharma, Rebecca Sarkar. Together they arrange for a specialist counselor, someone who has personally survived modern slavery, to speak with him. It's a bold move. Bear is emotionally raw. One wrong question could push him into a breakdown. Worse, it could prompt him to reveal the truth about Ray's death. But Patty believes professional intervention is the only way forward. If Bear doesn't confront what happened, he may never recover. Stockholm Syndrome's grip. As the counseling session begins inside Manpreet's house, the tension is suffocating. The therapist speaks gently, encouraging Bear to separate truth from manipulation. She explains how trauma bonds form, how captors create dependency, how victims often defend their abusers. Bear listens, but Ray appears again. Suddenly the room feels crowded. Ray circles him, unseen by anyone else. "She doesn't understand," Ray hisses. "I was helping you. You needed me." Bear's breathing becomes erratic. Sweat beads on his forehead. His hands tremble. The hallucination intensifies, embodying the very essence of Stockholm Syndrome, the psychological survival mechanism that kept Bear loyal to a man who exploited and controlled him.
Isn't comforting. It's suffocating. The therapist urges Bear to focus, to ground himself, to confront reality. And reality is brutal. Ray is dead, and Bear killed him. The weight of guilt. Across the village, guilt spreads like wildfire. Dylan Penders, Fred Kettle, confides in Patty that he feels cursed. Since arriving in Emmerdale, chaos seems to follow him. Ray's operation, Bear's breakdown, the police investigation. "I should leave," he insists. "Everyone would be better off." Patty tries to reassure him, but doubt flickers in his own eyes. Meanwhile, April Windsor, Amelia Flanagan, is wrestling with her own moral turmoil. She confesses to her stepmother, Rona Goskirk, Zoe Henry, that she doesn't feel comfortable walking free while Bear shoulders the burden. "I was part of it," she admits. "Shouldn't there be consequences?" Rona firmly reminds her that she was a victim, manipulated and exploited. But in Emmerdale, lines between victim and participant often blur painfully. A breaking point. Back in the counseling session, the therapist gently asks Bear the question he's been avoiding. What happened the night Ray died? The room falls silent. Ray's hallucination grows frantic. "Don't you dare," he snarls. Bear clutches his head, torn between two realities. In one, Ray was a savior. In the other, Ray was a predator. Tears stream down Bear's face as memories crash through his defenses. The argument, the physical struggle, the moment of blind rage. "It wasn't meant to happen," he whispers. "He wouldn't stop." The therapist doesn't judge. She doesn't accuse. She simply listens. And then Bear says the words that change everything. "I killed him." What nobody expects is what happens next. Instead of collapsing into shame, Bear stands. With trembling resolve, he reaches for his phone. He calls the police. Patty, Dylan, April, and Rona are outside on Main Street when flashing lights cut through the calm afternoon air. Police officers escort Bear from Manpreet's house. The counselor explains that Bear confessed and insisted on contacting authorities himself. Patty's world stops. For months, he has tried to protect his father from himself. Now Bear is choosing to face the consequences alone. Ray's final victory? As Bear is placed into the police car, Ray's hallucination lingers once last time. A twisted smile, a whisper of satisfaction. Even in death, he has succeeded in dominating Bear's life. Or has he? Because this time, Bear's confession isn't born from manipulation. It's born from clarity. For the first time, he recognizes Ray for what he truly was, and that recognition may be the beginning of freedom, even if it comes at a heavy price. What happens now? The question hanging over the village is stark. Will Bear be charged with murder, or will the courts recognize the psychological torment he endured? Modern slavery, emotional coercion, trauma bonding. These are not simple legal defenses, but they are powerful mitigating factors. Patty fears the worst. Dylan contemplates running. April battles misplaced guilt. Rona stands firm in support. And somewhere, metaphorically, Ray's ghost still lingers. A village forever changed.
Emmerdale has explored dark themes before, but this storyline cuts particularly deep. It examines not just violence, but psychological captivity. Bear's hallucinations are not about horror, they're about trauma. Ray's return proves that abusers don't disappear easily from the minds of those they control. Even in death, they echo. Yet there is hope in Bear's decision. By confessing, he takes ownership of his actions. He steps out of Ray's shadow. Whether he faces prison or leniency, one truth remains. He is no longer under Ray's control.